33% of your own members say they struggle to recruit bricklayers. 37% can't find carpenters or joiners. 42% of small local builders reported project delays due to lack of skilled labour. Those kind of figures speak for themselves. So what the government needs to do is to invest in the skills that helps the industry fulfil its objectives.
Yeah.
When you get in a black cab, you want to feel that the person driving it knows where he's going and can drive the vehicle because he's done the knowledge and he's passed the necessary test to become a licensed cab driver. That's an assurance of quality that's really good for consumers. And there's no reason why that shouldn't be true of builders too.
Hello and welcome to our episode of Build Up from the Basement, our podcast at the Federation of Master Builders, down here in the basement at Ely Place. I'm absolutely delighted to say today we have got the MP for South Holland and the Deepings, the Right Honourable Sir John Hayes, CBE MP, here with us, who has been an MP since 1997.
I like to spend my mornings in windowless basements, surrounded by people I don't know. So that's a great thing.
You thrive in such environments, don't you, really?
Exactly.
So I really want to start, first of all, Sir John, with your work with Youth Build UK. You're the honorary president of this fantastic charity. Can you just explain a little bit about what you do and what they do?
Youth Build was founded in 2002, and its aim is to help young people between 18 and 24 at the risk of social exclusion from one thing to another. Maybe they've got involved in petty crime or their lives have gone wrong in some way or another, difficult family circumstances, addiction, those kind of things, and to engage them in learning a craft through a relationship with a building firm, a construction company. And that link, making the link between disadvantaged young people and the industry, has been really valuable. It's helped thousands of young people to get a foot on the ladder, literally and metaphorically.
It literally has. And actually, we went to that event in Parliament recently and saw the live examples of that. And obviously, at the minute, we've got this huge skills shortage and, the pressure to go to university for these students nowadays. What can be done to encourage people to take up apprenticeships in construction?
I think the links that I described between young people and construction industry is critically important. It's not just disadvantaged young people. Making sure that those opportunities are better known through schools and colleges. As you know, I was the Minister for Skills, and one of my determinations was to boost the number of apprenticeships. So to say to young people, when you're plotting your future, when you're planning how to fulfil your ambitions, look at an apprenticeship. And of course, that confers on them a competence which has economic value. It also fulfills their wishes, gives them something to do which is meaningful, which is worthwhile.
You don't end up with all the debt from university?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, earning and learning. The great thing about an apprenticeship is you don't take debt, you earn while you learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's brilliant. That's really interesting. And you've had lots of sort of very high profile and interesting portfolio of ministerial jobs. Yeah. You've worked with a lot of housing ministers. What sort of things did they come across that were really difficult? What did you learn from that department?
Really difficult, I suppose, you'd list, you've implied it earlier, getting the right people with the right skills. And I was having a look at some figures earlier. 33% of your own members say they struggle to recruit bricklayers. 37% can't find carpenters or joiners. 42% of small local builders reported project delays due to lack of skilled labour. Those kind of figures speak for themselves. So what the government needs to do is to invest in the skills that helps the industry fulfil its objectives. If the government has these plans to build houses, you've got to have the people to do that. And that means equipping people with the necessary skills to fulfil both their ambitions and also the government's.
Okay, that's very interesting. And also, this housing target is incredibly, lots of people have said it's not going to happen. I mean, do we also think that Brexit was partly to do with this, that loads of people have left the country and that we've run out of skilled workers there? Or do we just think that actually not enough is being done to encourage people into a sector that's never really been, sorry to say it, that appealing? The construction sector's always had a bad name. How do you change that?
Interesting you should say that. I mean, I think that requires quite a sophisticated answer.
I'm sure you could do it.
Could I offer one of those?
Yes, please.
I don't want to disturb you
please do.
or your viewers.
Please do.
So one of the problems with immigration is that it displaces investment in domestic skills. So when you can bring skills in from abroad, you don't need to grow the ones at home. And so immigration, paradoxically, might deliver short-term benefits, but actually erodes the strength of your economy by that displacement. You don't train enough people who are going to work for their whole life in the industry. The second thing is that in terms of attractiveness, there's been a myth perpetuated by successive governments. I blame Tony Blair for it partly, but then again, I blame Tony Blair for so many things. That the only form of accomplishment that matters, it comes through academic prowess. I've always taken the contrary view. I think that practical, vocational, and technical competencies are at least as significant as academic accomplishment. Now, I am academic,
Yes, I know you are, yeah.
All my background has been
Highly academic.
in book learning. But most book learning, at least to first degree, beyond first degree level, to master's degree level, is derivative. Practical skills are creative at a much earlier stage and more meaningful. Might I quote a biblical example?
Yes, please.
So you probably know this, that the word has got out, that God sent his son to earth,
Yeah, that bit,
And
yeah.
he was a carpenter, and he chose for his disciples from fishermen. And the Pharisees, in the end, had enough of him and sentenced the Romans to die. The Pharisees, of course, are the academics of their day. What does that tell you about God's view of practical learning?
Very, very, very good point. Very, very good point. Very good point. So
Not one you hear often.
That's not one I hear often. And actually, I always love your biblical references. That's a very good point. We'll move away from skills, but let me just check.
And from God, maybe.
And from God,
Yeah,
maybe.
okay.
So reforms to fix, just as a sort of conclusion, what can we do to fix the skills industry? We need to be investing more in skills, that we need to be actually educating people better on it, and making sure that people know that they've got other opportunities other than university.
Well, that's kind of what I was alluding to when I talked about the Blair myth, the kind of idea that 50% of people should go to university, regardless of their tastes and talents.
Exactly.
Yeah, people's route to higher learning should be geared up to their aptitudes. So if their aptitudes are for practical competences, as I described them a moment ago, then they should be encouraged to pursue it. And one of the things I did as skills minister, as well as building apprenticeships, the highest number in modern history, we worked hard on level 4 and 5 apprenticeships, very high level skills. Because what I wanted to do is to refashion our understanding of higher learning. Higher learning is not just about higher education in the sense that it's often described.
Yeah.
What I described pejoratively earlier as book learning. Higher education and higher learning in particular can be about an advanced competence in all kinds of different ways. And so you think of a master craftsman. A master craftsman is someone who spent years learning their trade and then years perfecting it, and re-gauging how we see the accomplishment, how we see success, how we measure worth is critically important for the health of our country, for the sake of our economy, and for the good of our people.
Totally agree. Right, that's moved us on really well, actually, to talking about sort of the master of your craft is licensing. So obviously this is something that the FMB has long campaigned for, to introduce licensing for building companies.
Yeah.
Can you tell us why you're pro it and what your views are on it?
Well, if you think about what I've said so far, the link between learners and industry, the necessity to build real competencies that can be measured so that they're fit for purpose, so they actually do what businesses need. All of those things require a structure and a form. Apprenticeships provide that to some degree. Apprenticeship frameworks, of course, bring together the detail of what you need to understand, what you need to be able to do to become a successful apprentice and then to succeed in your apprenticeship. But beyond that, we need also to think about the structure, the collective structure, if I can put it that way, the way skills are measured, accorded, recorded over time. Now, I'm a great supporter of the guilds, the idea of the guilds. And historically, the livery companies, which still exist in the city close to where we are, did exactly what I described. They drew together the necessary competences in a field of work, and they issued a license to practice. The license to practice essentially meant that you'd achieved the necessary skills and you were fit to do the job.
Yeah.
My family, my great-grandfather and great-great-grandfather were stonemasons on my father's side, and they would have been through a long period of learning, and then they would have had a license to practice in their craft. My maternal grandfather was a lighterman on the Thames, and again would have gained those skills and been licensed through the Worshipful Company of Watermen and Lightermen to do his job. So there's a long-standing principle at the heart of how we once recognised that certain competencies need to be recorded and registered, need to be at a level to allow people to do their job. There's still a bit of that. The goldsmiths and silversmiths, for example, still train, the Worshipful Company still train people in their field, and one or two of the other livery companies still do too. But by and large, the guild principle in this country has been lost. In Germany, however, guilds are still really important. And the German model is really rooted in the concept that I've just outlined. The philosopher Hegel, who I'm interested in, was a great advocate of the German system of guilds, and I am too.
Very, very interesting. Do you think it's going to not only eliminate fears, because obviously all these people, we've got some figures out recently that say that 14.3 billion has been lost over 5 years alone across Britain to rogue builders. So do you think licensing is going to help eliminate, do you think, how would you see it working to actually work, if you see what I mean? What system would you think would need to be in place? Would it be like the Financial Conduct Authority, where you'd get your licence taken where you've been axed?
Well, I talked about my ancestry. Imagine if you went on the Thames with someone who couldn't carry goods, a waterman that couldn't carry people successfully,
a driver without a licence,
or a lighterman that couldn't carry goods successfully, and you lost your goods into the river or lost your life. You'd be pretty pleased then if there was a licence to practice, wouldn't you? And the same is true in most sectors, and in building, people are often exploited by cowboy builders. So from the customer's point of view, this really matters. I've spoken largely from the other side, if you like, from the point of view of someone that learns their trade and an industry that benefits from that. But from the consumer angle, having people that you know are right for the job, that are competent, that you're paying because they actually do what they say they can do and what you need them to do, is fundamentally important. As I said, there are elements of that. So in modern life, you think of a licensed taxi driver, for example. When you get in a black cab, you want to feel that the person driving it knows where he's going and can drive the vehicle because he's done the knowledge and he's passed the necessary test to become a licensed cab driver. That's an assurance of quality that's really good for consumers. And there's no reason why that shouldn't be true of builders too. I want to go, if I'm building my extension, or if I'm commissioning the building of a house, or if I'm engaged in any kind of more minor building work.
Have you ever been engaged in any and had to use a builder?
I have never been. Well, I've always been very picky about my builders.
I think lots of people are.
So
they're terrified. They're terrified about it.
I've always been quite picky about my builders. Actually, when I restored my house in Lincolnshire, this is not a widely known fact.
Okay.
So it's a revelation.
Okay.
And I think your basement shows
brilliant.
you need a few revelations.
Yeah, definitely.
To spice things up a bit.
Yeah, please, yeah.
So when I restored my house in Lincolnshire a long time ago, when I first became the Member of Parliament, so we're talking more than 25 years ago, a chap called Gary Porter, who subsequently became the leader of South Holland District Council, then became the head of all the councils, LGA, and now sits in the House of Lords. He was my small builder. He is the man who restored my dormer windows. Well, I can remember him on the roof with his tape measure.
I can't imagine him on a roof
So
now.
Lord Porter
That's so
helped restore my house. So as I can tell, as I said, in fact, I credit most of his subsequent achievements to the work he did at my house.
I can't
That's
imagine that.
completely unfair, actually. But I don't really mean that. But so Gary became a great friend, but and remains so. So yeah, I mean, I was picky
funny.
about my builders, but
Okay. And how did you find him? Sorry, just out
how
of
did I find
interest.
it?
Yeah.
Well, because actually through word of mouth,
There we go.
and that's
Okay.
often the way, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
When you commission a builder, true of most other things you do, perhaps, but builders, I think, particularly true because they know much more about what they're doing than you do. I mean, if you've ever seen a skilled bricklayer build a wall, as I did at my house at that time, it is a marvel, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is a wonder to behold. But you see, and so I built a whole building next to my house. And the chap that worked for Gary actually did that work. So word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
And in those circumstances,
Yeah.
if you know someone who could recommend a builder, and you trust their judgment,
Then
that's
you're
often
lucky,
the way you engage. I think the problem is that if you don't, and you're casting around desperate to find someone, the risk is
Yeah.
particularly if you're in a hurry or you
Yeah.
don't have the wherewithal
Yeah.
or the confidence really
Yeah.
to say, I don't think this person's up to the job.
But
You
also,
can-
they're scammers. Some of them are
Well,
professional.
quite.
These cowboy ones are professional. You know, there have been people who have been ripped off who are not stupid. You know, or
No, well, that's the
So
other
that's
thing.
the other thing,
I mean,
yeah.
if someone's very determined to cheat you,
yeah,
then in all fields, not just in construction industry, they'll do so. And these days, of course, we hear more and more, don't we, about how the internet's being used to do
well, they're
just that.
getting fake reviews from family and friends and all
Precisely,
this
yeah.
sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But have you had any constituents recently that, over the last, I don't know, since 1997, of any rogue builder
Oh
constituent
yeah,
victims?
I mean, I deal with hundreds of
know.
constituency cases every week.
What of?
Every week.
I know, sorry, not of
Okay.
constituents.
No,
cases, but
no.
of
I
rogue builders.
deal with hundreds of constituents every week.
I know, yeah.
Of all kinds, with all kinds of issues, all kinds of people facing all kinds of challenges, and sometimes that is about things like building and planning.
Okay.
And so, and it sometimes is about scams, as you said, and people being exploited. So I am nervous. I remember going back to ancient history, really. 30 years ago, my father was alive, and one day there was a knock at the door. I was at his house at breakfast time. There was a knock at the door, and a chap said, "I've come to replace the roof." And I said to my father, "Why are we having the roof replaced?" He said, "Well, it's very old." And this chap knocked the door and said, "That roof must be 60 years old. You need that completely taken off and replaced."
Right.
Now, my dad was a bright bloke, savvy, bright, no fool. But he was a man by that time in his 80s who clearly had someone simply knock at the door and had almost swallowed it. And had I not said to him, "We don't need a new roof, Dad. The roof's not leaking. There's nothing wrong with the roof."
Yeah.
The fact it's very old is not an issue. St Paul's Cathedral is pretty old, but they're not replacing the dome, are they?
Exactly.
I saw him off.
Well done, yeah.
No, I'm afraid we won't require you. And he wasn't that put out, so he clearly
Was a chancellor.
was a chancer.
Yeah.
Who was knocking at any door and saying exactly that. That's the kind of thing we've got to stop. By having a badge, we already have it.
Yeah.
So the Federation of Master Builder logo, the fact that you have that accreditation should make a difference. And when someone's getting quotes, when they see that,
Yeah.
it should help. But we can go further and say that in order to trade, you have to be able to show a level of professionalism, a degree of competence that means that people won't end up being cheated.
Thank you very much. Also, this has been introduced, the Private Members Bill on licensing was introduced by Mark under the Conservative government, and it had no interest at all.
No.
Because obviously it's regulation. And ironically, even though we did introduce, the Conservatives introduced the they introduce the FCA
Yeah, I
and all
think
of
so,
that,
yeah.
and then they now don't sort of want regulation. So Mark has always said it was much more likely to happen under Labour, this kind of thing. But I mean, it's something that has been rumbling on for so long. And it's one of the only sectors that's not licensed. And everyone along the chain, when you're building a house, obviously is licensed from, the start to the finish, apart from the builder. Do you think that this is something that the government will they ever, do you think Labour are more likely to introduce it than the Tories were? Do you think there's more of an appetite for change on this?
I think, the counter-argument, the argument against licence to practice is that it creates a barrier to entry, that it's tough for very small builders, or very small traders in any field. Back to my point about lightermen and stonemasons and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So the counter-argument is usually you're suffocating market growth.
Yeah.
So you can't.
Okay. Yeah.
You can't discriminate against entry level businesses, startup businesses, and so on. Now, when I was in the IT industry before I was in Parliament, businesses like the one I was in took their accreditations very seriously. So if you'd reached a level of necessary level of professional ability, so you've reached a certain standard, you got accreditations from Microsoft, for example.
Yeah.
You got accreditations from those days Novell or Compaq or IBM and so on. I'm going back to the 1980s, and those accreditations really mattered. And actually, some of the people that work for us, they would wear a small lapel badge to say that they'd achieved the necessary standards to be accredited in the way I've just described. So it was a really valuable way of showing potential customers that we were the kind of business that they ought to be dealing with, or would want to deal with. So I think it's the same for builders. Really, we've got to use this as an ambition for businesses as they grow. We can create a pathway to licensing, so that we don't suffocate new entrants to the market, because it can't become simply a sort of cartel of existing successful builders. I don't actually think the counter argument in the end holds true, but I think you will hear people offer it. And they made the argument about the internet. We should have regulated the internet years before we did.
Right. Yeah.
We took the view of the internet, because people have an endless fascination with novelty, don't they?
Yeah.
If it's new, it must be good.
Yeah.
You're getting it with AI now. Everything. And I knew the internet was going to be a disaster from the beginning. And because I was in the IT industry, and we kind of see the writing on the wall. And finally, government recognised the harm that could be done through the internet and introduced the Online Harm Bill, but probably 15 years at least later, too late. And now I was talking to a minister yesterday about this, actually, tightening that up in order to make sure that some of the scams you talked about, some of the horrors that pervade the internet are regulated. Yeah. Now we've got the same with AI.
Yeah.
We're going to regulate that too late until the damage is done.
Yeah.
So governments have got to be really on the ball when it comes to recognising potential harm and curbing it early.
Yeah.
And you can do that without suffocating the good that can come from these things. Because of course there's good that comes from the internet, there's good that comes from there's good that will come from AI, of course. Yeah. But don't assume it's all good.
Yeah.
And don't assume because it's new it's bound to be good.
Spot on. I'm just thinking if there's anything else that I'd like to... Oh, yeah. So, sorry, just taking it right back to where we started with Youth Build. We had 2 award-winning apprentices from the FMB, who I'm going to name now, called Caden Radford and Seth Barton, who were both recognised for what they achieved in their careers so far. What would, on a sort of final note, after all of your experience and seeing all those fantastic young people who have gone through awful times, and obviously I met some of them with you at that reception, what is your message to those people who have, or anyone who's in that position thinking, oh, shall I do it? Shall I go for a construction apprenticeship? Is it a bit, I'm a bit nervous about it. What would be your message to them?
Follow the example of the people who succeeded. So I've met a lot of young people at our annual awards ceremony. We have annual awards. You came to it, in fact, Iona, where people tell their story. And when they get an award, a Youth Build award, they recount the journey they've travelled, where they started from, the hurdles that they overcame to get to the point where they're nominated for an award, So not just the ultimate winners, but all of those are nominated have a story to tell. And the stories are touch your heart because you can see how the engagement with a meaningful exercise, i.e. learning a craft or skill, connection to a business where they will meet people who are usually older than them and form professional relationships with them. All of that is life-changing. Changing lives by changing life chances. That's what it's about. And that's what the construction industry and the Federation of Master Builders can do.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sir John, for taking the time out of your very busy parliamentary schedule to talk to us at the Federation of Master Builders and impart such wisdom for all of our members. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you.